All right, hey everyone, welcome back, of course, to our live stream today. We're going to do some special things around the whole idea of Sandbox and the metaverse and kind of whether or not Sandbox has stabilized after a bit of a retracement. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to TechPath. Let's dive into it today and really kind of get into Sandbox overall. As you guys know, we've been covering a ton of metaverse executives, projects, a lot of games, and of course, kind of this innovation on play to earn and kind of where this market is going. Sandbox has pretty much been leading the way. And if you look at some of the reasons is, of course, the real estate side of it. When I say real estate, the metaverse real estate side of it, as well as the functionality of the game itself and what we're going to be seeing in Sandbox as this thing starts to really, really accelerate in terms of users. I want to jump to this first story, which is the battle of the metaverses. Sandbox, Decentraland, crypto voxels all see sales surge as companies are looking in to get on the ground floor. And one of the things that you see when you have these kinds of scenarios coming in is kind of this whole idea around allocation. In other words, which platform is doing the best, which platform is getting the most, not only the most users, but also the most activity. And from this one right here, I want to kind of jump to a chart here that they had. First of all, sale of land in the metaverse, Sandbox Alpha accounted for a quarter of all NFT sales in the last week. Companies are definitely spending millions to get in on the ground floor. Obviously, we've seen the partnership with Snoop Dogg and many other companies that are starting to emerge in the metaverse in a variety of different ways. By the way, we are going to have a CEO of one of the metaverse real estate companies coming on very soon on the show. And we're going to talk about where this might be going in terms of land and also digital NFT acquisitions and what that might mean in terms of valuation, possibly rolling over into real life tokenization of real estate. That'll be interesting to see how that kind of comes together. Also, the other thing that you look at is the sales of the digital reality and metaverses this is from just November 29th to the December 5th. And you've got the Sandbox, of course, leading the way at 70.5 million just in the last 7 days. 4,433 assets were sold. A lot of that, I think, was because of the hype that we saw around Snoop Dogg and his estate, and of course, what that meant to the real estate prices within it. We're going to actually give you guys some gameplay today on Sandbox. We're going to try to feed it in here from the control room so you can kind of get an idea of, for those of you maybe new to the metaverse, maybe new to crypto gaming and new on play to earn, kind of where this might be going and just kind of give you guys an update of what this is going to look like. But best of all, here later in the video, we're going to really dive into whether or not Sandbox can hold the price, because token price is the big question for right now. Is it priced at a point where it's a good entry, or will we see another slide? Could we see a little bit of a bump? Let's go over to another story I wanted to get into. Actually, before we leave that one, I want to jump over here to this little note right here. Sandbox raking in the most sales. Individual plots within Decentraland are more expensive, but all the top 10 sales with the most expensive clocking in at 758,000 were within Decentraland. So that in itself is, to me, I think this is going to be interesting to see both Decentraland and maybe some others starting to play into this space of where the most valuable, metaverse land and also digital assets will end up being. If you look at the companies wanting to get in on the ground floor, spending millions for land that doesn't actually exist in the real world may not fit everybody's appetite, but obviously with the amount of people that are moving into this space, it's going to be huge. This is the company we're probably going to bring on the show, and that is Republic Realm, who essentially went out and has spent $4.3 million for digital assets within Sandbox. And this was just here recently on 30th November. So this I've seen happen in a lot of different aspects. And obviously you see these kind of investments in scholarships over on Axie Infinity, where you have guilds essentially building out whole treasure troves of digital assets. You see, in essence, these ETFs that are building digital assets and getting people to invest in them. Then you have these DAOs moving in this direction, which I think eventually will be the core thing of how games and NFT gaming is really going to move in the future, is moving in the direction of the DAOs themselves. Decentralized autonomous organization, guys, look it up if you are new to the channel And maybe a lot of these terms are maybe flying over your head right now. The key is that once you get your head around this, the reality is this all makes sense of understanding the conversion between Web 2 and Web 3. Now, think of it, if you're around, maybe you have looked at pre-internet era, or maybe you're more of a younger and you're looking at pre-social media era. Think of those transition periods before there was social, before there was true Web 3 or Web 2. This is kind of the phase in which we are living right now, and that is Web 3.0 and kind of this evolution of where not only blockchain, but also just the whole interaction of society, all things we will see on the metaverse. It is absolutely going to be unbelievable in terms of what that growth is going to look like. When you have these kinds of deals here, this over coming from Bitcoin.com, virtual land adjacent to Snoop Dogg Sandbox estate sells for $450,000 in Ethereum. And this to me is the perfect example of these kinds of partnerships. And right now, I just want you to think about this. In a year to 2 years, this would be 10x of what this partnership deal is today for a major celebrity. Imagine if you had a major celebrity, whether it was a band or a pop culture, reality star, or those kind of people that would potentially start to move in. And obviously you kind of have this with Snoop Dogg, but because of his edginess, I think he really understands where this is going. And if you look at this, 2 days ago, Sandbox disclosed it was selling virtual plots located next to Snoop Dogg's virtual property. Snoop has been a cryptocurrency advocate for obviously quite some time. He revealed that he was a non-fungible token whale called Kozomo, and I like that one. At the end of September, Snoop partnered with Sandbox in the gaming system where people can create and share and monetize, obviously, what we're seeing here. There's the Wave 1 that launched on December 2nd. Obviously, we saw all this result into some pretty active movement in the space. So right now, a total of 3 small estates are to be auctioned off. Now they're out there on OpenSea. The Sandbox announcement for further detail on Thursday. So far, a plot called Wave 1 3x3. This one sold for 71,000 sand, roughly around 450K at the time of settlement. So this is, I think, an interesting aspect of whether or not this will continue. And a lot of people are looking at this as possibly being something that is way overhyped, super hot right now, and may not necessarily have sustainable functionality. My argument with that, sure, there could be overhype. There has been an all new technology as it rolls out and develops into the marketplace. It happens all the time with stocks. It happens all the time with startups. This is no different. It really isn't. The difference here is that it has this massive ecosystem that's built around it, meaning these communities that really strive and thrive on building and helping these economies kind of come to life. So very, very cool in terms of where this might be going. 71,000 sand is worth less than 400,000 after the crypto market carnage. This is obviously after what we saw there. Owner of the land next to Snoop's estate called P-Ape, and the collector has a number of popular NFTs. You can kind of see where his situation is in terms of value, and I think that's going to be the real question here is how does value, obviously it's not like the real estate market, which is not falling when we see the stock market immediately. So digital real estate may have a little bit more of a tie to what's happening in the crypto space, more so than what you see like when the stock or the Dow Jones falls, and how quickly does that have a relational impact on real life real estate. So I kind of look at it in that way to try to compare, because eventually you're going to have to start to understand how to invest in those assets and what would you have to do to kind of keep up where the market conditions are. And I think you just treat it just like you do anything else that you're tracking in the space in terms of token price, sentiment, which always leads back into price action. And I say this on the show a lot, is that no matter how many technical analysis tools you use, the core element to drive price is actual sentiment that is rolling in the market. And social and crypto are literally locked at the hip on how the markets fare based on what's happening in social, news, FUD, all those kind of things. So it's very tied to what the water cooler and the node or the network effect, Metcalfe's law, really does in terms of growing in this direction. Sandbox retraced to key levels as sand price prepares to skyrocket 30%. This is a particular FX Street analyst that's been saying, hey, maybe we think this might actually start to adjust. Sure, it adjusted down, but we think it's going to reposition and have another potential high. And I'll show you a chart here in a minute to kind of jump into that. And before we get to the chart, though, we're going to jump to gameplay next after this. But Sandbox has corrected 38% from its all-time high, retesting crucial support levels, anticipating a move higher. Now, this would be a pretty big statement if you look at the sentiment data over a period of time. And when we show that in the chart, you'll start to get a picture around Sandbox and the evolution of that ecosystem. Not only the game and what they've been able to do so far in the alpha, but what the community is starting to do in terms of reacting to that. Because remember, it's kind of like with traditional Web 2 games, whether you're a Fortnite player or a Call of Duty player or any of those communities are massive, and they help move the needle in terms of how that game is, one, in some cases even architected, but definitely in terms of how that game is adopted by new players and other players that are converging over. So this works the same way, I think, in blockchain if you look at how the gaming industry has kind of developed. So I think blockchain gaming will start to move in that direction. But the key here, of course, and this I've said this many times, is that we've got to be able to accelerate the blockchain gaming into real AAA gaming level quality. I think that will be the big case. Next thing here, if SAND produces a lower low between 377, it will invalidate this bull thesis. So if it does drop, it does not look like it's falling down below that. After getting rejected at the trading range midpoint and declining trend, it does show signs of heading a little higher according to this chart. Whether or not this plays out to what our chart will say, you got to stick around. You're going to check out this most recent sentiment data. And then in this condition, investors can expect SAND's price to retest if it does break through and hold at $6.77 hurdle, which would be a run up from $5.27. Again, a 30% ascent on Sandbox. And you can kind of see what they're potentially estimating right now. And there's a reason for this. This bullish outlook has a lot because many metaverse games did take a little bit of a price adjustment, though there were a handful of projects that were unfazed. And in some projects, they actually accelerated during this last dip. Now, if you saw our videos previously on Bitcoin and Ethereum, we still think there might be another correction coming, whether it's going to be as deep as the one we just lived through. But I do show, and if you watched that last episode we did on Bitcoin, make sure and check it out because it does show, we did a TA analysis with Evan Aldo, and the model was showing a little bit more of a correction, not a big one, but a correction that we would see potentially maybe coming back down to 42K. But the point is that these metaverse games and also just the metaverse projects in general did not have the massive impact that in the past we would have seen of a fallout style of condition, much like ETH did not have that big of a fallout. So anyway, we're going to try to jump over to some gameplay here on Sandbox to kind of give you guys an idea of what this environment really looks like and feels like. Maybe this is the first time you've looked at it. Each time a member, obviously you'll build your own avatar before you go into the game. It is a PC-based game, which is why I'm not playing it here on my desk, but because I use Macs, of course, here for this. But it is a PC-based game. You can kind of see a little bit here as you can move around within the different environments, which I think are, this is one of the most, at least in my opinion, is one of the most advanced. So there we are taking a little selfie with Snoop. And I think the cool thing is that as this eventually starts to really kind of explode, there's going to be so many more brand integrations. We're going to see a lot more gameplay development in this. Right now we're cruising around the gallery, checking out a lot of the NFTs. There's a Bored Ape over there. Moving out into the open, which is more of the overall world of Sandbox. And obviously we'll see some other players coming in because this is a live stream that we're actually giving you guys live gameplay. So the point being is that as as I think this, and really when you think about it, this is one of the most mature games that are out there right now, especially when it comes to blockchain. And I think this is the key with a lot of games as we develop and moving on into kind of this next layer, is we've got to be able to get games at this level. Now, the question is, how many games will be able to kind of accelerate their development and their rollout? Remember, this is an alpha that you're seeing right here on screen right now. So all of that is very positive, very bullish, and I think Sand is in a position. I love that character right there. That's a good one. I think Sand is in a position right now to really do some damage in the early parts of how this game is going to roll out. I don't want to stress our studio PCs too much as we live stream here, but because we're bringing in cameras and streams and different feeds and all that good stuff. But as you can see, this is a good one. I like it. It's definitely one that I think is going to be a fun environment to play in, and then of course just being able to acquire assets, the digital NFT side of it. This just opens up a whole new layer of where Sandbox is going. Let's get to the chart and dive into this, because this is where I think everybody's kind of looking, is whether or not this is the time to buy Sand. Let's take a look quickly, and I want to show back all the way back here into really one of the first points that we started looking at Sand when it was starting to take off. It had been priced right around 81 cents. One of our first videos that we actually recorded Sentiment had scored Sentiment at 68.55 and a 69.23 on AMP. That identified a little bit of a upward movement, and of course that's what we ended up seeing right here, was this movement right here. And of course that was from this point to there, that was almost 160% move. So a little bit of a parabolic. Obviously we saw a little bit of a dry spell here. We did see some growth right here, which was right after our last or our previous, which was November 11th. That was a 74 and a 75. Again, another move up to a high, another 144% on the movement there. And if you continue to look how Sand started to fare, except for this price correction here and here, this one was on November 28th. And then this one right here was the one, of course, we saw on December 4th last weekend. And you'll notice here, Sentiment right here, let me get my marker so you can kind of see. Sentiment right here at 74.52. It continued to climb at 77.09. It adjusted a little bit right here at 75, but AMP kind of held with it, and AMP was holding a little bit on the line there. The only thing that concerned me was this one right here, where we did see Sentiment still holding, but amplification did not hold with Sentiment. This was the first time that we had actually seen this occur. However, because Sentiment has been holding above the 70 line for such a long time, we still think this is going to be one of those projects that will continue to really start moving. And if you look at what we've got right now on our estimate of where we are right now, even though we do show a little bit of a potential here for a little bit of a fall off, we're in the 57-58% potential bull range here, as opposed to what FTX's analyst was talking about, a 30% run. Our low on Sand, we think, could be around 461. Our high in the short term is on this line at 680, which is very similar to the 677 price that FX Street and their analyst was talking about. But our real bullish side shows us all the way up at almost $8 for Sand. Now, could that happen all the way out into the middle to late December? Sure, this is definitely one of those times in which we may start to see some of these corrections occur. Remember, one of the key things here, again, even though it's not directly related and tied to Bitcoin and Ethereum and some of the blue chip alts, this is one of those projects that seems to be holding, even though the retracement was significant, seems to be holding. We're not seeing that kind of super fall off like we did in some of the edgier projects. And this is a strategy that I've talked about for quite some time, is flushing out the lower 20% of your projects. And this is really just a good practice to do anyway, year round really, is take the 20% of your projects that are either underperforming or even just barely performing, flushing that capital, moving that either into tax loss harvesting or just moving that capital into dry powder and be ready for these dips so that you guys can re-engage, get back into assets or projects that you might like. I did a lot of that during this last dip that I had been able to do that. Luckily, we had been doing it during a video that we've been running several series on, which is our super risky portfolio video. Make sure and check those videos out because it kind of shows you the process of how to identify projects early and then also how to get out of them at the right time. So back to Sand. Right now we show it very high on the CPI score. This is still a super buy for us. We think this is a good price right now, trading at $5.29. Anything under that $5.50 range is in a good position. If you think about where this has come just since last the 4th, which it had that nice little dip, and then it bounced almost immediately right back up to $6.11. Started sliding down. We saw a little bit of a low right here at 480. And then another adjustment right here that pulled it up to 569, and then where we are right now. And it seems to be, when you get a little bit closer on the chart here, let's draw that one out a little bit and take a look at these candles. You can kind of see where it's coming back into the CPI layer right here, where it is kind of coming right back in here. As I said, the only thing I'm a little bit concerned with is this period or section right here, which is right here around December 9th. So this could happen maybe tomorrow. As we see, there are a few things that are happening in the market that kind of can affect this. So good stuff to look at. We're going to get to some questions now to kind of understand kind of where potentially Sandbox might be going, but also some other projects out there that you guys might like. A couple of questions coming in. All right, so this has come from PB&J Astronaut. Paul, does your analysis point to the possible Sand 100X in 2 to 3 years? Thanks for all your awesome updates. 100X in 2 to 3 years, that would be, okay, so there's a couple of ways that could happen. There's been projects that have been able to do that. Remember, the metaverse is so young right now. The likelihood of massive deals that are coming in the space are real. The likelihood of major sports, major celebrities, major brands. The bigger question I have to be able to go to 100X is that you need something very important, and that is adoption. If you don't have mass adoption, which I think we will, because everybody that I've talked with, CEOs, executives, analysts, all that are tracking the metaverse and are as close to it as we are, they already see the writing on the wall. This is accelerating at about 3 times the speed in which early era internet accelerated. So if you think about 3x the speed, the potential is in maybe a 2 to 3 year period, if we don't see a cool off, that a 100x is within the potential there. So I wouldn't completely pull that out, astronaut. I wouldn't completely pull it out. To the moon for you. So definitely a possibility. Let's get over to another one. I missed Axie, a Sandbox growth on a similar path. I would say yes, from Bobby Coons over here. I would say Axie and Sandbox are, one, they have a lot of similarities just in the way the development teams are moving. Sandbox, I would feel, is a little bit more powerful because of its connection to expanding way outside the gameplay. Remember, Axie being a game, Sandbox being really more of a metaverse play. And I would answer that question, yes. There are some, I actually think Sandbox might actually be a better performer than what Axie was when we had Axie in the early days. Remember, we were calling Axie when it was really underpriced and we felt like it was going to skyrocket, and it actually went parabolic even faster and higher than what our analysis was showing, but we've been able to trace with it since then, for sure. All right, so Sandbox is like Minecraft, which has 10 million users. I think that's a good point. Back to what you're saying there with growing together. And that's to my exact point, is that adoption is going to be very critical in the next 18 months. And especially, I think that's why the alpha is so important. I think that's why land sales are so important right now. And also these next few deals that are partnered with Sandbox are going to be critical in being able to do mass adoption into like 10 million users. Terry Ball, wait for the marketing trade to pump the project. I think you're right, Terry. That's my point right there, is that there's a lot yet to be done, and we are very, very early. So you guys listening in, watching this show today, you are in Bitcoin 2013. It feels like right now with what's happening in the metaverse. It's that early in the game. Oblivious Cat, I got an alpha pass. I completed all the guests. Should I sell alpha, wait till $1,000 sand, get 1,000 sand and 3 NFTs? That would be a good question for Chris of what route to take, our gaming expert here, of whether or not that would be it. I feel like I would hold. I would hold something that has this much potential for upside gain and also long-term play, because I think Sandbox is one of those. It's in my portfolio as a long-term hold right now. It's a CPI score of 9+ right now on our CPI index. So any of those that score over 9 are in my bag for long-term. Now, sure, you should take profits. If Sand gets hot during this bull run and goes to $10 and you're in at 3, or maybe you're in right now at 5 and you double X or 2X your money, you may want to take a little profit right there, even though I think we'll probably see Sandbox start to really accelerate. We could see a $25 sand price in this cycle of where we're going. So that's a 5X move from where it is today. So be thinking about that. Mustafa, how about Mana? All right, Decentraland is, I think, a formidable competitor. However, when you look at the gameplay and what you saw here today, Sandbox they're just a level up than where Mana is right now, where Decentraland is right now. So unless Decentraland really unleashes the developer community to really go in this direction, I think Sandbox wins this race hands down. Hands down. Rena, Alice, also undervalued. Man, you are speaking the language here. I like this, Rena. Alice, my neighbor Alice, is a project. We are trying to get them on the show. If anybody out there in the Diamond Circle community has any kind of connection either into the groups or into that ecosystem for my neighbor Alice, pop our name in there as much as you can. We would love to have that team on and talking about it. By the way, we just had Star Atlas on the show today. I don't know if we've dropped that video yet, but you guys want to check that one out. That was Michael Wagner with Star Atlas on the show. All right, Birds Bees, when's your next Diamond Circle wheel spinning? Hey, man, it's funny you say that. We might be having a Christmas spin-off here pretty soon. We're going to be doing something special around Christmas. We think there's a timing right around our 250,000th subscriber. Make sure and spread the word out there. We're trying to get to that 250 as quick as we can. So be ready for looking for that. It's going to happen this month. All right, Terry. Thoughts on Illuvium? Big plays on Illuvium. Illuvium right now, I think, is moving. We are getting ready to do another video on Illuvium because we have some new information and some new data points to take a look at Illuvium that you are going to not want to miss. It's going to be big. Let's go in here. That's a good question, Edwin. Our Sandbox server is based in Amazon. I don't know if that I know the Amazon outage with AWS was real. But I found out today that a lot of game developers are working in Google Cloud. So maybe not as much on servers unless it maybe is gameplay or alpha that could be in there. But I was wondering if you had problems with Sand, if you're out there playing it, drop it in the comments or hit us up if you're watching this after. I'd love to know if on today, if you had problems, if there were any kind of game delays or any outages that you experienced. I'm kind of curious. Josh Udy, do you think it will go to 8 by end of, I'm assuming you mean end of December here, Josh. This is close. It could. I mean, our call right now on best case scenario, let's see what we are doing. And let's go back to the chart here. And our high was right at, 802. Right there at 802 is our high. So that could be it. But anyway, we're going to wrap it up for the day. Make sure, guys, don't forget, get into the Diamond Circle. It's the #1 place you can find all these great tools. We do a lot of analysis. We've done one on Sandbox. We do some on tokens all over the place. We're getting ready to maybe launch a new service within Diamond Circle for daily drops of tokens that we're making on recommendations. If you think you might be interested in, definitely join in. Just hit the link below in the description to get into the Diamond Circle. Of course, if you want to reach me, you can do it on Twitter. It's @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.